Hi, this is Dee, and you're listening to my podcast, Let Me Clear My Throat. Last night, I actually had done a podcast for, I don't know, I think it was a little over an hour-ish. And almost towards the end of it, I actually looked at my screen, and there wasn't like these squiggly lines and stuff, for my voice and stuff that I usually see. And I got to thinking, I was like, I hope this is working, because I just spent like over an hour talking about a very sensitive subject for me. And, obviously I was very upset and crying and stuff, and things that I had not really touched on before, talked about for, probably 20 some years. And, anyway, needless to say, long story short, my microphone was not on. So I recorded this podcast last night, and the whole time my microphone was not turned up. So, needless to say, here we are. So, I'm not really for sure if I want to necessarily get on the same subject as I did last night. It's a very sensitive subject, but however, I feel that if I don't touch base on it, it's something that is very near and dear to me in so many ways, and not in ways that make me smile. Obviously, it had me very upset last night, but especially with this, I don't want to say this time of year, because there really isn't a time of year. I don't believe that is more specific than others, because it doesn't keep a zip code, it doesn't keep a time, it doesn't keep a nationality or a sex or a marital status, or it doesn't discriminate. We're just going to put it that way. Suicide is I used to think, maybe, I don't know how I'm going to word this. It's a very, like I said, it's a very sensitive subject to me. I had a best friend, a very best friend of mine, and about 23 years ago, on Father's Day, June 17th, she was in her 30s. She was being mentally and verbally and emotionally abused by her husband. And he had, I don't know how I'm going to word this all, because I touched on base on this last night. So, I mean, it should be, I guess, a little bit, I don't want to say easier, but it's just really hard to relive and think about. And if anybody is a victim of suicide, or being a suicidal survivor, or a family member or a loved one or a friend or somebody that has touched this point of their life in some way, my heart goes out to you, and this podcast may trigger some things for you. So honestly, I just want to kind of give you a heads up on that. It obviously has triggered things in my mind, and trying to relive some things and think about some things. But my best friend, she was in her 30s. She had 2 children, 2 boys, age 4 and 7. And her husband, she was an at-home mom, and he was very verbally, mentally, emotionally abusive to her, was threatening divorce with her, had put her down, telling her she was worthless, nobody would want her, the whole 9 yards. And she obviously was highly affected by it, and there were several times that she was going to leave, or he had kicked her out, and whatever the case may be. And several times I had went over and helped her pack up and stuff, and she at one point in time had packed up her stuff and brought him over to my house, and she wanted me to hold on to him, and he would always accuse her of where's the money go? And you're blowing it, and this, that, and the other. And so she actually saved every single receipt that she ever got anything with. I don't care if it was a Pepsi, or in her case, a Dr. Pepper, or a piece of candy. She kept that receipt, and she had one of those expanded folders, and she organized them in there. And my mom and I, actually, we had owned a business at the time together, and she had called me on the phone and asked me if she could go to my house to get some stuff, and she needed some stuff, from her stuff. And I was like, well, that's fine. You have to come by and get my key, and then just bring it back to me. And this was in 2001, and this was a Saturday, the day before Father's Day. And so she came over and she got her key, or my key, I'm sorry, and she was gone for a while. No big deal. And she come back and she gave me my key back, and she was part Indian, so she had like the dark, hair, and she was into wolves, and she had one of them. She had a white shirt on, kind of like a t-shirt like shirt, and it had like the little, like the little frills that hang down the t-shirt with the little beads on them, all the way around. And if you're kind of from my generation, you probably know exactly what I'm talking about. But she had that kind of shirt on, and she come in, gave me my key, and we were chit-chatting and stuff, and I had went to stand on the top step of, the outside of the door, and she had a Blazer, and it was parked in the parking lot, and I couldn't go down to the parking lot because we had another door on the other side, and, I had to watch for that door to open, in case somebody came in or whatever. And so her and I were talking across the parking lot and stuff, and she was telling me she was going to go see her brother, and that her husband had the boys, and was at the fish fry that the town was having. And I said, well, if you're going to go to your brother's, that's a long drive. And she said, yeah, it's a long drive, but the drive will do me good. And because her brother lived like about 2.5, 3 hours away, something like that. And she didn't have any other family. Her brother was the only person she had in her family alive. She might have had an uncle, but I'm not really for sure. It's very vague, but I know pretty much the only one that she had was her brother. And so anyway, she left, and I just had this, I don't know, I just couldn't shake this. I don't know, I was just kind of drawn to it, and I couldn't shake this feeling that I was having. I don't know if it's just because everything she was going through, and I was concerned about her, or what it was. And I literally watched her Blazer brake lights and tail lights until I could not see them anymore. And then I just kind of stood there and paused for a minute, and just went about my business, back to work. And the next day, my mom comes in, and we didn't open till like noon. It was Sunday. It was Father's Day. And my mom come in, and she's like, sorry it took me so long to get here. I couldn't come up the back roads. They had the roads closed off. And there was a bunch of, like fire truck, ambulance, and, police cars and stuff. And it was at the top of this hill because we had this real big hill on the backside of, down from my mom's house, and it's right there by the creek. And there's this big hill that goes down. And anyway, I guess the first responders were at the top of the hill for the most part, that she could tell. And I said, well, maybe somebody up there in those houses up there, maybe somebody had a heart attack or a sick or emergency or something. I said, I hope everything's, everybody's okay. And, we just kind of went on about it. And so after work, I went home. And, back then, we had answer machines that were connected to caller ID boxes that were connected to regular home phones that actually were adapted into our wall. And I had a cordless phone, and it had a built-in answer machine in the phone with a built-in caller ID box. And so there was a message on there blinking. And anyway, I pressed play and listened to it. And it was my best friend's husband. And now, mind you, he and I did not get along because I didn't put up with his shit, just point blank. I didn't. I've been in so many abusive relationships in my life, my ex-husbands, and but at this time I only had one ex-husband at the time. I hadn't met my other one yet. But I was kind of like in that stage of my mind and in my life that I didn't take no crap, especially from no dude. And I was a very strong, level-minded, independent woman. That's just the way I was, and I didn't take his crap. And he did not care for me. But anyway, I had a voicemail from him. And in this voicemail, it wasn't a very long message. And he was, I don't remember it for, word for word, but he was like very short. And he was like, he was talking and he's like sniffing between time, which obviously, I'm sure upset, but he was like, D, just want to let you know, Anne killed herself this morning, and that's how I found out my best friend died. And that was pretty much the message. So I called him back because I'm like, no, he's messing with me, And so I called him. I'm like, what's going on, And he's like, she didn't come home, and he said, went out looking for her, and there's some things that he said just didn't make sense. I don't know, but long story short, she went down, when she came over to get my key, she grabbed her checkbook, and she went to Walmart, and she bought a shotgun. Now, my friend, she had a handgun. She was very fluent, with a gun. And she was a huge tomboy. She had no rhythm at all. No rhythm at all. She tried to get me to teach her how to dance, and she could not. She could not carry a beat. Bless her heart. And she had came over one time and wanted me to fix her hair. They were going to this dinner party and stuff. And she was like, can you do my hair? And so I did like a French twist and did her makeup and stuff. And she wanted me to teach her how to braid. And she didn't own any ponytails at all. No, not a single ponytail or scrunchie at all. Not a single drop of makeup. She was a full tomboy. And So anyway, she had went and bought a shotgun. And she backed her blazer up, put a blanket draped around her, sat at the back of the tire of her blazer, had some stone rocks or whatever, and took one of them sticks that are shaped like a V that you put a fishing pole in when you're fishing, and propped her gun up, took another stick and killed herself. And the police were like, it was very strange because everything she had was in her blazer. Pictures, all her personal items, pictures of her family and important papers. He said, and then she had this accordion divider thing full of nothing but receipts. And I said, yeah. And I explained to him what that was all about. And that was why my mom couldn't come up the back road. It was her they were in. It was her. And I got called in to go talk to the police department, and I was in one of their interrogation rooms. And it was just very, they just wanted to talk to me on what I knew about her and trace some of her steps and stuff. And I told them some things that, I knew because we were always together, and and when we got done with the meeting, when we got done talking, he looked at me and he said, he might not have pulled that trigger, but he killed her. And I looked at him, obviously very upset and crying. And she had a 4-year-old and a 7-year-old boys. They were by different dads. They ended up getting separated. And at the funeral, the youngest one, the 4-year-old, he come running up to me. He's like, Dee, be quiet when you go inside. Mommy's sleeping. And my heart just broke. And I was trying to keep, straight face with him. And it was a very full, packed funeral. And the sad thing of it is her brother was her only family. It was all his family. And I remember sitting with my mom and my oldest niece and a teacher that actually was a second grade teacher at the elementary school. She actually used to tutor my oldest daughter. And she sat next to me, and I knew her very well. She used to tutor my daughter for free at her house on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And my friend's son was in her classroom. And that was a very, very hard funeral for me. It was probably one of my hardest ones. My dad's obviously was they had to get me out of the casket on my dad's. My grandson is pretty top up there too. Actually, I think him and my dad are kind of side by side. Obviously they're all hard, but different levels for some people. Obviously different relationships. And but I can honestly say that I don't know of anybody that can honestly say they've had the police called down on them at a funeral. But I can. I can. Yes, I can. I didn't even do anything. In my defense, I did not do anything. I know everybody always says that, but I didn't. I was inside, and I was standing over my friend talking to her. The picture that they had took that day that I had fixed her hair and makeup was a picture that they had inside of her casket. And I was talking to her and stuff, and I was very, very upset. I could hardly even see through all my tears. And the guy who worked there came up to me and he said, the police are out here. They want to talk to you. And I'm like, why did the police want to talk to me at my best friend's funeral? Okay. So I go outside and there's 2 cops out there. And they're bicycle cops. And I'm like, I was confused. And they were like, we got a call. And basically what it was is when they had us line up in line, they pulled my car up, and I was parked right behind the hearse. And not behind, but the car that the family goes into, the limo. I was parked behind the limo. And evidently he saw me get out of my car or something, and he was not happy about that. And he wanted me to be made to leave. And earlier, I know I'm probably jumping around. Last night when I explained to this, it was so much more in order. But I don't know how you can really put something like this in order, but prior to all that happening, I had never met her brother before. And I walked by this gentleman sitting down. And I stopped and I paused and I turned back and looked at him. I said, "You have her eyes." I said, "You must be her brother Bobby." Because that was her brother's name. And he said, "You must be Dee." And I said, "I am." And he came up and he gave me the biggest hug. And, well, anyway, the police had told me they wanted me to leave, that the husband wanted me to leave. And I said, "I'm not doing anything wrong. I'm just trying to bury my best friend. I have not done anything. I have not even spoke to him. Nothing." And so they went back and talked to the husband. And I guess her brother kind of, he kind of intervened too a little bit. And he said I could stay, but I had to put my car at the end of the line. I had to be last. And I'm like, I don't care. I didn't put my car there to begin with. That's just the way they pulled him in. And her brother came up to me and he said, "Why don't you park your car and you can ride with my wife?" And I was like, okay. Okay. And so we go through the funeral services and we're leaving and we go to the cemetery. And we pull up and I get out of his wife's SUV. And I look up and the husband's just glaring at me. And I just looked at him and I gave him this little grin. I wasn't trying to be cocky. It's just I just had noticed what happened. His wife's SUV was right behind the limo. And I was like, wow. And I wasn't trying to be a smarty but I wasn't trying to be insensitive. I just had not really paid attention to that level. But I have not, I tried to go to her grave, one time, probably about, I don't know, 3.5 years ago, maybe. And I couldn't find it. and I guess I probably just overlooked it. But the boys had got separated, and when I was talking to the police department, he was explaining things to him, and he's like, well, it was definitely premeditated. And he said, in the memo on the check, she wrote Happy Father's Day. And Father's Day is a very, very hard day for me. But this last Father's Day was even more of a dose, because not only was it June 17th, but my dad is now gone. So it was a very, 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 it was a rough day. And the 4-year-old little boy, which was the son of the husband, my friend's 10-year anniversary, the husband came home from work, and her son, who was now 14, had shot and killed himself in his bedroom. And I did find his gravestone when I went to look for hers. I did find his, and they were not together. But he had killed himself. And I was always so... I mean, I went through the thing of, did I miss something? I would go through emails and letters and, things of ours. I'd replay that night over and over again, or things that we talked about, and, just everything. And why didn't I go down there to her blazer? Why didn't I go down there? If I would have went down there, I probably would have saw the shotgun, and all these things going through my head. Why did I have to watch her taillights till I couldn't see them? And every time they had the fish fry every year, it triggers me. And I was so upset and mad at her. I mean, don't get me wrong, I miss her terribly. But I was so mad at her. I was like, how can you leave your little boys like that? I mean, take everybody else out. How could you leave them? And then left the youngest one with the guy who you killed yourself over. And I couldn't wrap my head around that level of intensity, if you will. And I thought, man, how selfish of you. And, her and I had joked about, she'd say, if you have another kid, I'll throw you a baby shower, and you need to have a girl because, I got boys. And I'm like, that's not how it works. You need to have another kid if you want a kid. I'm not having a kid because you want to have a kid to play with and dress up, But that August, after my friend had died in June, I found out I was pregnant with my youngest daughter. And there's a 10-year difference between her and my my other child before her. And she carries my best friend's middle name. And my son named my oldest granddaughter. Her middle name is my best friend's first name. And he even wanted to make sure he spelled it correctly, because she had an E on the end of it. And he wanted to make sure that he spelled it correctly. And after that, It took me a long time to go down the back road here. A very long time. But when I was trying to go to my appointments and stuff on my daughter, it was getting harder and harder to go around. And so I just had to do it. And sometimes I would stop there and I'd sit there and I'd talk to her, or I'd drive through there and I'd wave at her, or sometimes I would just look over to the side and just keep going. But my mind always crosses, it always crosses that moment with her. After the funeral, her brother and one of her other friends was there, and they wanted me to take them to where they found my friend. So we left the funeral and everybody was just kind of watching us like, where are y'all going? Because we just like formed a big long line and left. And I took them down that road. I bought her a Dr. Pepper. Because she was big on Dr. Pepper. She had a trailer, because they'd moved out of a trailer and moved into a different trailer, a bigger one, after a family member had passed and they had got their other trailer. And she had sold their original trailer to one of my other very, very best friends for a Dr. Pepper. And anyway, I bought her a Dr. Pepper, and I took it there and poured it out over by the creek. And but then years down the road, I had another really good friend of mine, and he was going through a divorce with my very, very best friend that I had that bought the trailer for a Dr. Pepper. They were getting a divorce, and he didn't take it so well, and he adopted her baby because he got with her right after she had her baby, and I was in the delivery room when she had her baby, and he adopted her. And anyway, they was going through a divorce, and it's a very traumatic, heartbreaking situation all the way around. It really was. There's a lot of fine detail in there that I'm not going to elaborate on, but he didn't take it very well, and he was supposed to help me find a vehicle one day, and I couldn't get a hold of him. And that wasn't like him. And we were just friends. There was nothing else. We were just friends. He actually worked with me, and I introduced them together. And I was needing to get a vehicle, and he was going to help me pick one out. And I had known him for a long time, and with him being married to my very best friend, I knew them both very well, and they were both my friends. And then, of course, him adopting the baby and stuff. So we were just all really, really good friends. And anyway, I couldn't get a hold of him. And then finally he would answer, and he was slurring his words really bad. And it was early in the day. And I'm like, he was drinking. And we kept getting disconnected and stuff. And then times he wouldn't answer, and then he would, and he was slurring, so I couldn't even understand him. He just did not sound good. And I called his mom, and his mom sent his brother over there. And he had took like a 2x4 and had mounted it to the wall as a brace over the front door, so nobody could kick the door in. He had all of his important papers, his insurance papers, everything laid out. He had a suit hanging up on a nail in the garage. He had a noose hanging over the rafter in the garage. He had been drinking and had the engine running in his truck sitting in the garage with it closed. And his brother found him laying on the ground in the garage and got to him in time. And they took him to the hospital, and he lived. And he was like, "Can you take me to get my truck?" And I was like, "Yeah, no problem." And he said, "You might not want to come in." I said, "No, I'm okay. And he knew about my friend, And I'm like, "No, I'm okay." And he's like, "You really might not want to come in and see this." I said, I'm fine. And I was more worried about his frame of mind. And I saw all the detail. He was serious. And by the grace of God, his brother got to him in time. And as far as I know, he's still alive today. He doesn't have much of a relationship with his daughter he adopted anymore. And he's got another relationship and has kind of went on with his life, but he is alive. And, and being in the line of work and stuff I was in before, I used to clean crime scenes for a living. And suicide was one of our biggest things that we did. And there was I think one of the most, they're all heartbreaking, but one I think that really tugged at my heartstrings was a murder-suicide. It was an elderly couple. And the elderly man, he had diabetes and had lost his foot and his leg, and his son had went on vacation to Hawaii with his family, and he no longer got to Hawaii. He had to come back home. Well, I guess the dad had went to a doctor appointment, and I'm gathering he didn't get very good news. And the elderly woman, she was a stepmom, she killed him and then killed herself. And he was in the living room in a chair, and she was in the kitchen in front of the kitchen sink on the tile floor. And that was really, really heartbreaking. And like I said, obviously it all is, but I couldn't even imagine what that couple, what their conversations were about, and what they were feeling, and their last words together, and or even her mindset after she did what she did. I could not even begin to even understand that level. And the son, obviously, he obviously distraught. More, I don't know, they didn't even the word even define. But it was obvious he did not care for the stepmom. But obviously a lot of emotions getting thrown around and stuff too. So I don't really want to speculate where it was at. But he was very verbal about her. But my crew and I were there, and it took us about 3 days to get it all cleaned up and stuff. And that's like, obviously that, you work till late. And then you're back up early and at at it again, and to where your body is just in so much pain, because it isn't for the faint of heart, I can tell you. But most of our cases were suicides. And we had another gentleman was in the military. He was a young gentleman. And he had just got back from being deployed. Still had his gear and stuff sitting on the floor. And he had went out to the balcony and killed himself. And it went down and got all over the toys and stuff at the family below. So you're down there cleaning up, trying to take care of, the kids' toys and stuff down there. And just not even, couldn't even imagine what was going through that man's mind. And what all he had been through and what he was carrying, and what darkness was over him. And I've talked about this before, I think, on one of my other podcasts. We had, I called it the most considerate suicide victim. There was a gentleman who lived in another state, and he lived with his mom, and he had got a rental car and came to Indiana, which is where I'm from, and got an apartment. Hadn't even unpacked. Had only been there maybe a couple weeks, maybe not even a full month. And he had all his important papers laid out. He had his will laid out, his insurance papers. All of his stuff were still boxed and labeled. And he had called the police department, or had called 911 rather, and told them what he was going to do. Told him that the front door was unlocked. Please don't bust the door down. It's unlocked. Just come in, and this is where I'll be. And he was. He moved across state lines with a rental car into a new apartment. Didn't bother unpacking, because he didn't want his mom to be the one to walk in to find him dead, because he lived with his mom. He premeditated that deep. He had an electro thing that for his head, that it was on his nightstand. I could not even fathom what that man was going through, to where it was that intense for him. And I can sit here and go on and on, case after case, people that I know, or people that I know of, that have reached a level in their life that there was no alternative. And they say that, people that commit suicide, most all of them don't want to mean to. It ends up being accidental. Well, my thing is this: how do you know that? Because you can't always talk to them to know if it's an accident or intentional. I mean, you really, but then years went by, And I have been through some very horrific things in my life. A lot of abuse, trauma, a lot of trauma. Severe depression. I am severe manic depressive. I am bipolar, OCD, among other things. I've got a lot of things going on. I was starting to put my life back together. And I talk about this in some of my other podcasts and stuff. And I was putting my life back together and trying to. And I was homeless for a couple years. I had my own home. I owned it for like 14 years. And I was a scientist, 3 degrees, 4.0 and 3 honors. Very proud of it. Worked very hard to get that. Mother of 3, 7 grandkids. Had my stuff together. And had always held my own. Always took care of myself. I've been on my own since 4 days after my 17th birthday. I've always had myself together. Always provided, raised my kids by myself, worked 2 jobs for 2.5 years to save up money to buy my home. I was on it. And my grandson died. Tragically. Died on my birthday, actually. And that was just the beginning of an end. And I lost my home. I couldn't function enough to even keep a job, let alone get one. Lost all my belongings, everything I ever owned. Lost my family, my kids, my grandkids, myself. I was homeless for 2.5 years, living on the side of the road, Walmart parking lot, truck stops, hospital parking lot, friends' driveways, pull-offs, anywhere I can find a place to lay my head safely in my vehicle. And was finally starting to put myself together, and I ended up buying a camper and had it parked here at my parents' house. And my dad was telling me, you need to get that out of here. It's like 2 months after I got it. And he's like, it ain't going to stay here. And I'm like, I know, I'm just trying to figure out where to put it. I don't have any money, and I don't know where to go. And I'm working on getting me a job, and I was trying to put my life back together. And my mom was like, just let her keep it here, and she can just pay us, rent to stay here. And so he agreed to that, and I was paying basically enough to pay my electricity part of it. And I got me a job as a therapist for autistic kids. And my daughter ended up needing me, my youngest daughter. Sorry, I got a little sensory item going on here. I gotta put that down. I'm playing with, it's a sensory thing, I guess. I had some resin on the side of a container here, and I was peeling it off, so I apologize. Anyway, this is what I do. Anyway, my daughter had needed me. And once she got back up on her feet and stuff, about that time, my dad had accidentally overdosed on his insulin. And so I moved back in my camper at my parents' house to be there, because if something happened to one, the other one's going to need me, and vice versa, because my mom, is blind. And that Christmas, I was very proud of myself, because I actually did the holidays that year. And he had even commented how proud he was of me, because since 2016, actually 2016, I couldn't do holidays. I couldn't do my birthday. I couldn't even do life. I was in no shape for anything. And I had finally done it that year. And about 2 weeks later, he died. And I quit my job as a therapist to take care of my mom. My mom is disabled, blind. And now, 2.5 years later, she's basically bedridden. I am her sole caregiver, 24/7. And up until about a month and a half ago, maybe 2 months ago, it was just me. No help from nobody. But my oldest daughter, is staying here with us right now, and she has been a godsend. She's been helping a lot. And before she moved in, about a year, maybe a year and a half ago, things were getting pretty bad for me. Sorry about that. I know you don't know it, but my mom actually needed me there for a minute. So I kind of got sidetracked. She has this button that she rings when she needs me. So I actually had to pause there for a bit. I don't remember exactly verbatim on where I left off, but I know about kind of what I was talking about. So basically, with everything that had been going on in my life, with my dad dying, and the tragedy of my grandson and my kids, my grandkids, and my home and my life, and everything just coming at me. I didn't have really any family to go to. Actually, my family was not very understanding and supportive, if you will. They were more into being everything but that. We'll just leave it at that. And you would think that'd be the time your family would come together, more so. But it wasn't. If anything, my family made me feel like I was a worthless piece of shit. Point blank. My youngest daughter basically took care of me. She was 13 at the time. It wasn't her kid. But she was what kept me alive. Checking on me. I made myself sleep one time for 5 days in a row because I didn't want to do something I knew I didn't want to do. And sleeping was the only way I could be without hurting. I didn't hurt if I was asleep. And my daughter would be like, Mom, you need to get up. You've been in bed, a few days. Mom, you need to eat. You haven't ate in a few days. And Mom, I'm applying for you a part-time job just to get you out of the house. What position would you like? Or she, if it wouldn't be for her, I probably would not be sitting here today. And it was not because she didn't give up on me. But the sad thing is she shouldn't have had to be the one to have to carry all that on her young little shoulders. My family should have been there for me. Instead of judging me and putting me down, accusing me of things. I don't even understand the reasoning of why I was treated the way I was, when I had never in my life ever given any of them any reason to think anything negative or doubt me one bit. The thing that happened to me was I had a tragedy in my life. My grandson died. He died tragically. My family fell apart. My life fell apart. I fell apart. I was dying and not buried. I couldn't even function. I was in no shape to be anything for anybody, let alone be a human. And I was alone outside of my 13-year-old daughter, basically. I had to survive when my family, in all honesty, was making it worse. Making it harder. Put the cherry on the top, if you want to say it there. Wanted to judge me. I would never in my being I just can't wrap my head around. I just can't. And it got to the point in my life I didn't have anybody to go to. My poor youngest daughter, she couldn't carry that weight no more. That girl's been through more in her life than what she ever deserved to go through. And if anything, they deserted me, they deserted her. She was a kid taking care of me. And Dot said, I don't know. If you can't wrap your head around it, what do you think a little 13-year-old kid is doing? But it got to the point where I heard nothing but bad things about me. Talking bad about me, putting me down, judging me on things, just anything and everything. I've heard so many negative things and degrading things about me from my own family and relatives than I have a stranger my whole life. And that has crushed me. Crushed me. And then about the time I'm putting my life together, it still was never good enough. People that have not been in my life have no idea what I'm like. Have no idea what I was like beforehand. Don't even really know me. And it's like, even friends, so-called friends, telling me that it's my fault I'm homeless. I choose to be homeless. No, I didn't. Believe you me, the last thing I wanted was for me and my youngest daughter to be homeless. But I lost myself. I lost me. And if you have not been in that level of darkness, don't you dare judge something you don't know. And I pray wholeheartedly that you never find out. But the people that were passing judgment on me, or I would go to and tell them I was suicidal, for them just to say, that's your feelings. Get over it. More and more just made me shut down. More and more I was crying so hard. And then you throw losing my dad in the mix of it. I had to give that man CPR and try to save his life. I miss him every day. I watch my mom. I had nobody to talk to, nobody to go to, nobody that even cared to listen, nobody that noticed. I would talk and they'd tell me to shut up, but then when I quit talking, nobody even noticed I wasn't saying a word. And I was still getting accused of saying and doing things I wasn't even doing. I still am to this day. People think they got me all figured out. They don't even know me. They don't even know me at all anymore at all. Because they never bother to really look, ask, care, or put their judgment down long enough to actually see something besides what they want to present to the world to see to make something dramatic happen. I've had enough drama in my freaking life. Calm the F down. You don't know. You might think you do, but I assure you, you don't know me. And I know this because I don't even know me anymore. I'm undoing over 50 years of my life the reflection of everything everybody has made me feel like I am. I, for once, am trying to think of my life and me with respect to taking care of my mom. But I am so tired of walking on eggshells just to save everybody else. I am so tired of holding everybody else up while I'm falling. And nobody even cares or even sees or even tries to even look at where I'm at, how far I've come, what I do, and how I'm even handling my life anymore. Because a year ago, a little over a year ago, it was a dark, dark, dark place. It was a very dark place. I would go to my camper and I would cry so hard that I didn't think I could stop. I had nobody. I had never felt so alone in my life. I could sit in a crowded room and feel so alone, but then sit in a room of people dressed up like chairs, an empty room, and feel like I had more people there than I did when there was a room full of people. I used to talk to the air all the time. And then I would always say, what's the matter? The air don't care. I would put myself down and I would say, the world would be better off without me. Nobody would probably even notice if I wasn't here. Nobody probably would even come to my funeral. All this I've done my whole life. Always trying to be the right person and do the right thing and be there for everybody. For what? For what? What was the point in the end of it all? What was the point? I was alone. Nobody even cared whether I was even still breathing or even asked me how I was doing. Then I'd be like, I could come out in this camper, make it all go away, and nobody would even know. They wouldn't even come to even check on me to know if I was gone or not. The only way they would is if my mom called them and said that I was out in my camper and she didn't know why. And then maybe somebody might come and check on me. Otherwise, they wouldn't. It's like I'm trying to do all the things I'm supposed to do. I'm trying to put my life back together. I'm trying to put me back together. And everywhere I look, everything I think about hurts. It hurts. I hurt. I always say I like to make people laugh because I know what it feels like to hurt so much that if they're laughing, then they're not crying. And at least for that one brief moment, I know they're not hurting. And maybe they can actually get a breath of air to finally breathe and get a moment. And it was getting so bad. I was looking up ways to inject rubbing alcohol. I was putting a bunch of my prescription medicine and my over-the-counter medicine and anything and everything I could find to put in a big bottle, like a little pill cocktail, if you will. And then it got to the point where I took it further. I was starting to write letters to people. I was keeping a notebook and writing down people that I thought would come, like, a guest list, if you will. Pre-planning some stuff, writing some stuff out I was going to do to pre-plan. And then I'd done something. I left myself a voicemail. A text message, and it was actually a text message recorded. I don't remember what was on it. I just couldn't do it anymore. And this time the game changed. It changed real big. Because I had a handgun. And I cried so hard one day. I couldn't even see through the curtains of tears in my eyes. I didn't want to die. I wanted the pain to stop. I even had it up to my head once. And I put it back down. And I held it and I looked at it. And I cried so hard. And I prayed so hard. And I don't know. I don't really remember much on what stopped me. I don't remember. I just know I didn't do it. But I don't remember what happened and why I didn't. In my mind, I was on an edge of a cliff. A very, very tall and deep cliff. And there was no bottom. And I jumped. And somewhere in that, somehow, some way, something caught me. Something caught me and saved my life. And I don't talk about it to anybody. Actually, this is the first time I really, really went in depth about it. I mean, I talked about it a little bit last night, obviously, in the podcast. Never recorded, or my mic was not on, but people don't. Let me rephrase that. I feel like it's easy for people to say, let me know if you need anything. I'm there if you need anything. Call if you need anything. Reach out to me, you know. Until you get in that level of darkness and the depth of it, it's not so easy to do. You can't just pick up a phone and be like, hey, I'm thinking about killing myself, or people saying, hey, I'm there, you need anything, call me. That's the biggest lie I've ever heard in my life. There are many people that are dealing with a depth so deep, different huge levels of depression and grief. And grief is different than sadness. Grief is love with nowhere to go. But when you grieve yourself and your own being, it's a whole different level of darkness. And unless you have been in that level, don't judge what you don't know and understand. Instead of being judgmental, be a little bit more compassionate and understanding. It might just be what saves somebody's life. Because while you're judging somebody, you might as well just be throwing logs on the fire and burning them in hell. Because that's what they're feeling. And I pray so hard for anybody that is going through any type of level of anything, especially to this magnitude. You know, I know that with me, reaching out to somebody when you feel like you have nobody to turn to, it's really hard to feel like it's okay to go to somebody. It's hard to open up to people and not feel judged or feel like anybody even understands. And when you feel like you're alone, and then you're in your frame of mind that you're in, it is not that easy to just pick up the phone and call somebody. You hear people say, well, I don't know, I've been trying to call them, they haven't returned my calls, or I told them to call me if they need anything and they haven't called. It's not that easy. It's not that simple. Because if you're in a different frame of mind, you're not thinking logically enough to think, oh, I'm suicidal, I think I might pick up the phone and call somebody and be like, hey, guess what? No. It does not work that way. I have had to learn how to calm myself down, redirect myself, and find numerous different ways to counteract and intervene me. And I've said this before in my other podcasts. Learning your techniques on what works for you is key point. At least it has been for me. And before I've done the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 method, I have since changed that. I have been to the point where I have cried so hard, it would make me sick. And now I do my ABCs. And I do my ABCs in my head, or when I'm really upset, I say them out loud. And not too long ago, actually, probably last week maybe, I was really, really upset, and I was trying to say my ABCs, and I couldn't even get them out. I was so upset. I couldn't get my breath in order to say them. My goal is to say them smoothly, because then I know I'm calm. And at the end of it, when it says, won't you sing them with me, I would take a deep breath. And I did it several times last week, several times in a row. And I was trying really hard to be smooth in my tone and be able to, flow the letters and stuff out. And when I get like that, I actually have added another technique to it. I say it out loud, and then I also do it in sign language. And I do it until it's smoother for me and I get my breath. Because at the end of it all, I'm taking a deep breath, trying to breathe, trying to breathe through the anxiety of what I'm going through and to calm myself down. And then once I get it to where I can say them smoothly, I do it again. But at the same time, I talk to myself. I will talk to myself, sometimes out loud, sometimes in my head. And I will give myself a pep talk, trying to counteract all the negative things I've always have said or society has made me feel. You're ugly, you're worthless, you're a piece of shit, nobody will ever want you, you won't amount to much, maybe you are what everybody says you are, nobody's going to come to your funeral, nobody cares if you're here, our world's better off without you. The list goes on and on and on. And I'm counteracting that with positive things instead. And I'm trying to teach myself to look at myself with and without a mirror, to not only see beauty as the person that I am, but to feel beautiful as the woman and person I am. And it's very hard to do when life when those in your life of people that have crossed your path, or even society, have made you look at yourself every way but that way. And sometimes that's just a lot. That's a lot to overcome. That's a lot to counteract. But sometimes that's also the depth of your darkness that you feel. At least it is for me. But finding a way that works for you, finding things that counteract where you're at, talking yourself through things and trying to counteract all the pain and the heartache and the negativity and whatever is weighing you and overtaking you. Try to do positive things of talking to yourself and intervening things like instead of saying, hey, I'm a piece of crap, and be like, I'm beautiful, I'm smart, I'm talented, I'm resourceful, I'm needed, I'm loved, I'm considerate, I'm giving. Give yourself positive things. I used to say I'm not my scars, but I am my scars. My scars are me, because they are what have put me where I'm at today. And I'm a warrior. I'm a survivor. And if I am in your ear right now and you are continuing to listen, I hope and I pray that if you're in that dark, everlasting infinity of the abyss, standing on the edge of the cliff, I pray you don't jump. And for those that are listening that cannot relate to that, I'm glad you can't. But don't judge something that you cannot relate to, that you don't understand. And that you might be the one very person, the one moment, the one intervention. You might be the one catching them and being that one that saves them. But you're not going to be that one if you're doing everything to just keep adding on to the pain and the heartache. Don't be that person. Because while you're adding logs to the fire of them feeling like they're burning in hell, you end up being the one mourning them at their funeral, wondering, why didn't you see this coming? What could you have missed? And I'm not saying everybody's like that. And I am, like I said, I went through this with my best friend. I've been at both ends. And I can honestly say I have apologized to my best friend, because I did judge her on something I didn't understand. And I do now. I do definitely now. And if you feel like, there's a darkness or something, 988 is a suicide prevention line, and there are many skilled people there that can help you. But like I said, it is easier said than done. And there are people that can help you that do understand. Talk to your doctor if possible. Maybe find a support group. And if you need to, even reach out to me. I would much rather give you an ear and be there for what you need than for you to have a different alternative. And sometimes people you don't know are there for you more than people that are your blood. Not saying that's for everybody, because there are families out there that are actually families. But if you come from where I come from, you got more relatives than you got family. And then you got those friends that are more family for you than your relatives could ever be. So I'm going to close out here now, but this obviously is a very, very sensitive subject, and I was going to talk about statistics and all that stuff, but in my train of thought, just one is too many of a statistic. So, and I pray that you don't feel like you need to be that one. And if you have given your time up to dedicated listening to me, like always, that is the one thing in your life I always say is very priceless and precious, and that you can't get back, is your time in your life. And if you dedicated listening to me, thank you wholeheartedly. Means a lot to me. And if you are mourning the loss of somebody to suicide, or you are a suicidal survivor, my heart goes out to you. And please know that even though you feel alone, I promise you there's probably more than what you realize that understand that depth of darkness. And like I said, if you need an ear, I'm just a click away. And on that note, I'm going to close out, and I hope everybody has a safe and happy and blessed holiday weekend. And to all our veterans and families of veterans, thank you so much for your service. And if anybody has lost a loved one in the military, thank you for blessing us with your loved one. Because of them, we are where we are today in our world, and we wouldn't be us without them. And on that, I will close this out. Thank you very much, and have a wonderful, safe, and blessed Memorial Weekend. Good night.